Welcome to Pretotyping. Before you build it, experiment like an innovator. I'm Liesl van Rooyen, and I'm excited to take you on this practical journey into a smarter way of bringing ideas to life, whether you're working on new products, internal solutions, or digital services. In this workshop, we're going to explore a mindset and method that can radically reduce risk, save you time, and help you build things people actually want. Let's dive in. Before we zoom into the solutions, let's zoom in on your experience. Take a moment to reflect. Think about a product, solution, or service you helped build, something you were excited about, but in the end, it flopped or fizzled out. Was it adopted? Did people actually use it? Was it worth the time, money, and energy? Write down your answers to these 4 questions on your notepad or worksheet. How long did it take? What did it cost in effort or money? What was the uptake like, internally or by customers? How did it feel? This pain is real, and it's common. But as you'll soon learn, there's a better way. Let's unpack why this happens, even when we have great ideas and talented teams. It starts with a spark. A brilliant idea. You pitch it. People get excited. Budgets are approved. The team starts building. Weeks turn into months. Maybe a prototype is launched. But then, the reality hits. Low adoption. No real traction. The users say, "Nice idea," and never return. The result? Time and money gone. Morale drops. The learning? Often too late. Let's talk numbers. A basic prototype, especially in tech, can cost anywhere from $25,000 to over $250,000. And that's just to see if it works, not if anyone wants it. It often takes 3 to 9 months and a multidisciplinary team to bring an idea to life. And while you're building, you're not testing the market. You're hoping. And hope is not a strategy. Most ideas fail, not because they're badly built, but because people don't want them enough. Even amazing products can flop if they solve the wrong problem or target the wrong people. This is the law of market failure. Greater than, most new ideas fail in the market, even good ones, because nobody wants them enough to actually use or pay for them. Let's compare. Build first equals build full prototype, high cost, low confidence. Pretotyping equals test early, low cost, high confidence. Let's take a macro view of innovation. Across industries, from mobile apps to physical products, most new launches fail. Here's what the data tells us. Only 10% of mobile apps ever make money. Only 20% of new products succeed. And only 1 in 5 startups generate returns. That means most launches are failures, not because people can't build, but because we build before we validate demand. That means most launches are failures, not because people can't build, but because we build before we validate demand. Here's the real wake-up call. Only 0.5% of consumer mobile apps succeed. Most are downloaded once, and then abandoned. The world is full of solutions nobody really needs. That's not a failure of coding or design. It's a failure to check if people actually care before we build. Let's take Google. They've killed off over 267 products. This equates to approximately 51.5% of its launched products being discontinued. And Microsoft. Their Zune music player, Windows Phone, and others quietly disappeared after major investments. Even the biggest, most well-funded companies with world-class talent fall victim to the law of market failure. What have we learned so far? Innovation is risky. Most ideas fail. The real risk is not building badly, it's building the wrong thing. Smart innovators flip the process. They validate before they build. It increases your confidence, speeds up your innovation, and helps you say no to the wrong ideas. Most new ideas fail not because they were poorly built, but because they were unwanted. When we test for feasibility before testing for desirability, we risk building something no one will ever care about. You've seen the stats, more than 80% of products fail. Not because the teams lacked skill or effort, but because they misunderstood the real problem, what the market truly wants. And it's not just small startups, Google, Microsoft, Apple, they've all launched products that completely flopped. So here's the question we're here to explore. What if we could know what people want before we build anything? That's where pretotyping comes in. It's a smarter, faster, and far less risky way to test your ideas in the real world, before you commit time, money, or product development. And here's the best part. This approach applies to everything, from apps and digital platforms, to physical products, services, and even internal business initiatives. Our goal today is to help you gain the confidence and clarity you need to build things that actually matter to your users, your customers, and your business. Sound good? Let's take a quick look at what we'll be covering today. Alright, here's what our session will look like. We'll start by unpacking the real problem we face in innovation, why so many ideas fail and what we can do differently. Then, we'll introduce the innovation risk pyramid to help you understand where the biggest risks actually lie when bringing something new to market. From there, we'll dive into the core concept of today's session, pretotyping, what it is, how it differs from prototyping, and why it's so powerful. You'll also get a walkthrough of the Write It canvas, a practical tool you can use to test your own ideas, quickly and with minimal cost. And finally, we'll wrap up with a call to action, so you leave here not just inspired, but equipped to run your first pretotype within the next 7 days. Ready? Let's get started with the real problem we face. Let's begin with the real challenge at the heart of innovation. Every day, across the world, and right here in Africa, countless projects and products fail. And it's rarely because the teams lack talent, funding, or drive. The truth is, most of these ideas failed not because they were built badly, but because they were the wrong thing to build. This is the core problem we're here to tackle. It's a tough reality. So many ideas fail simply because they didn't meet a real need. The market wasn't interested. Customers didn't care. There was no urgency, no pull. That's not a failure of execution, it's a failure of assumption. So let's flip the script. What if we could know what the market wants before we build anything? What if we could reduce the guesswork and start with real-world signals? Imagine if, before writing a single line of code, crafting a prototype, or designing a new service, you could already have an answer to the most important question in innovation. Will people care about this? In other words, will they buy it if we build it? That's the promise behind smarter testing, and the power of pretotyping. But to get there, we first need to rethink how we see risk in innovation. Let's look at the innovation risk pyramid, a tool that will change how you prioritize your next move. Let's talk about where the real risk lies when innovating. Most teams think the biggest risk is whether the product will work, so they jump straight into building. But the truth is, the biggest risk comes much earlier, at the idea stage. It's whether people even want what you're planning to build. So how do we better understand and manage this risk? That's where the innovation risk pyramid comes in. The default approach is to start at prototyping. We build something to see if it works technically or functionally. But what if no one cares? What if nobody shows up? You'll have spent time, energy, and resources, only to prove a technical solution to a problem no one needed solving. So instead, we shift the risk down to interest. We ask, do people want this? Would they engage with it if it existed? Let's take a moment to visualize the innovation risk pyramid, a simple but powerful way to understand where most ideas go wrong, and how to do it right. At the base, level 1 of the pyramid is your idea. Do you have a clearly defined problem, and a value proposition that addresses it? That's your foundation. Next, at level 2 comes interest. Before you build anything, ask, would anyone actually care? Would they click, sign up, pre-order, or engage, even if the product didn't exist yet? Then, you move up to level 3, prototype. Now the question becomes, can we build it? Here's where you test functionality, what it looks like and how it works. Above that is level 4, the product stage. Can it scale? Is it reliable, ready, and usable in the real world? And finally, at the top, level 5, business. Can this become something sustainable? Can it grow, compete, and thrive in the market? Now, here's the kicker. Most teams start from level 3 of the pyramid. They build the product, polish it, maybe even launch it, before they know if anyone actually wants it. But great innovators, they flip the pyramid upside down. They start with interest, testing desirability first. If no one's interested, there's no point building. That's the magic of pretotyping. It helps us validate real demand before we spend time, energy, or money on building anything. So, what exactly is pretotyping, and how does it work? Let's unpack that next. So now that we've seen where the real risk lies in innovation, let's look at how to manage that risk with pretotyping. Let's take a moment to clarify a really important distinction, because people often confuse these two. Prototyping and pretotyping are not the same thing. Pretotyping is all about answering one powerful question. Will anyone care if this exists? You're not trying to test how the solution works yet. Prototyping, you're trying to find out if people actually want it at all. Pretotyping. Pretotyping comes before you build anything functional. It's about testing the core value of your idea in the fastest, cheapest, and most behavior-driven way possible. It's focused on real-world signals, not opinions. And it works for digital products, physical products, services, even internal initiatives. Here's the key difference to remember. Prototype tests how it works. Pretotype tests if anyone cares. One tests function, the other tests desire. And in a world where most ideas fail because they were never truly needed, pretotyping helps us test smarter, sooner. Here are a few classic pretotyping techniques. Fake door, a button or link that doesn't actually go anywhere, but tracks whether people click. Paper app, drawing the app interface on paper to simulate interaction and see if users get it. Concierge test, manually providing a service that you'd eventually automate, just to observe interest and engagement. All of these help you learn if there's interest, without writing a line of code, manufacturing a product, or deploying a full service. Real behavior, real insights, minimal waste. Let's bring pretotyping to life with a real-world story, from before the term even existed. Mechanical pretotype in action. Meet Jeff Hawkins, the visionary behind the Palm Pilot, one of the earliest handheld digital organizers. Before building anything, Jeff didn't jump to coding or engineering. Instead, he made a wooden block the size of the device with a paper screen on top. Then, for weeks, he carried it everywhere. He'd pull it out in meetings, pretend to check his schedule, make notes, just like it was real. Why? Because he wanted to answer one simple question. Would I actually use this if it existed? This is pretotyping at its best, testing real-world usage with the smallest possible investment. No code, no circuits, just a clever simulation of the user experience. And guess what? That insight helped guide one of the most iconic products of its time. Now imagine if we applied this kind of thinking to our own ideas. We've just seen a great real-world example, but there's more. The pretotype planning canvas includes a variety of practical techniques you can use, and we'll explore those shortly. So now that you understand what pretotyping is, let's talk about why it matters so much. Especially if your goal is to move faster, reduce risk, and make smarter, more confident decisions. So far, we've explored what pretotyping is, how it works, and why it's different from prototyping. But here's the real question. Why should you use it? Pretotyping isn't just a clever idea, it's a proven way to tackle the number one cause of failure in innovation, building something nobody wants. It helps you get to the truth faster. Instead of guessing or assuming, you're testing real-world behaviors to see if your idea has real-world value. Whether you're launching a product, service, feature, or internal tool, pretotyping helps you move from assumption to insight. Let's break it down. Save time. No need to spend months building something just to discover it doesn't matter to users. Save money. Pretotyping lets you test ideas before you invest in development or full-scale rollout. Build confidence. You're not relying on opinions, you're gathering real data from real behavior. Take this real example. A startup spent 6 months building a product that nobody wanted. Had they used pretotyping early on, they could have redirected their efforts, avoided wasted time, and built something people actually cared about. Pretotyping gives you evidence before investment, and that's a game changer. So now you're probably wondering, how do I actually plan and run one of these smart, low-risk tests? That's exactly what the next tool is for. Let me introduce you to the Pretotype Planning Canvas, your step-by-step guide to running your first pretotype. Let's introduce the tool that will help you turn insight into action. The Pretotype Planning Canvas. It's a simple yet powerful framework that helps you design a pretotype, step by step. You'll use it to clarify your assumptions, sharpen your hypothesis, and choose the right test before you build. Whether your idea is a digital product, a physical solution, a service, or even a social innovation, this canvas works for all of them. In the next slide, I'll walk you through the key components, so you can start using it right away. The Pretotype Planning Canvas, download using QR code. The canvas helps you move from idea to action, with structure, clarity, and speed. Here's what's inside. Your idea. A single, sharp sentence that captures what you're testing. E.g., beer for dogs. Market engagement hypothesis, MER. This is your gut feel, in a sentence, how you think people will respond to your idea. E.g., many dog owners don't like drinking alone and would buy dog-safe beer. XYZ hypothesis. This is your MER translated into numbers, making it measurable and testable. E.g., at least 15% of dog owners who buy dog food will also buy a $4 6-pack of beer for dogs. Hypozooming. You don't need to test your idea at full scale. Zoom in on a smaller, faster, local version of your hypothesis to validate it efficiently. Test it in one store, one Facebook group, or a weekend event. Pretotyping method. Choose how you'll simulate the experience. Will you use a fake door, a paper mock-up, or a live concierge test? Skin in the game. What real signal will you look for? Payment, email sign-up, time invested. The more value they put in, the stronger your evidence. Storyboard. Map out the sequence of your test. What happens, in what order, and how will you capture the data? Ethical considerations. How will you handle transparency, consent, or reward participants if your test isn't a real product yet? Can you offer a coupon, refund, or early access later on? Resources and AMP. Budget. What do you need? Who will help? How can you keep it lean, ideally under $100? Hours to data, HTD. How fast can you get your first real results? Aim for tests that take hours, not days. Extras. What else could you gain from this test? Audience building, testimonials, early adopters, investor interest. This isn't just a thinking tool, it's your action plan for testing what matters most, with the least risk. It's everything you need to design and run your own pretotype. Now let's apply this to a real example, the water clay project. This example shows how one team validated a clean water solution using local posters, a weekend demo, and sign-up sheets. It worked. They got behavior signals that mattered. And you can too. Download the full case example from the PDF by scanning the QR code. As we wrap up, let's recap what we've covered. Innovation is always a risk, but you can reduce that risk dramatically when you test before you build. Pretotyping helps you validate your idea before investing time, energy, or money. And with the Pretotype planning canvas, you now have a simple tool to guide that process. So here's your challenge: run your first Pretotype in the next 7 days. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to give you a real-world signal. Start small, move fast, and use what you've learned to make smarter decisions. You're ready. You don't need a budget or code to test an idea. You just need a question, a canvas, and courage. Let's build what matters, together. Scan the QR code to access. Editable Pretotype planning canvas. Water clay project example. This presentation in PDF format with the script. And access to our curated library of AI insights. Now go, experiment like an innovator. Thank you for joining us on this journey to smarter innovation. If you're running your first Pretotyping experiment, if you're looking for feedback on your Pretotype planning canvas, or if you want to explore how to bring Pretotyping and AI-powered experimentation into your team or organization, reach out to us. We're here to support you. Your next step could change everything. Just make sure it's the right it before you build it.